Jan 4, 2026 marks year 4, day 315, since the full-scale invasion began. A warm welcome, I greet you. For the daily situation report, in today's report, we see Russian border crossings into Ukraine, a brief meltdown from our favorite propagandist, developments from both armies in Ukraine, and much more. But before that, a quick look at the completed fundraising campaign. I have to say big praise to everyone who did something good last year. Over 30,000 euros were collected on PayPal, and another 26,000 through the Ukraine Aid bank account. It's really incredible what was accomplished here again. The highest single donation was 3,000 euros. The donor is welcome to get in touch via Discord or through War and Tactic. To contact me so I know where to send the special War and Tactic flag for this fundraising campaign. By the way, there was supposed to be a live stream today, but due to personal circumstances, I wasn't able to prepare it, which is why we're currently watching a pre-recorded video. I'll try to make up for it later this week since I don't want to go another month without it. The Russians were able to further expand their lead at Hrabowski. Here, soldiers of the 34th are trying, of the Motorized Rifle Brigade, to seize more border territory for themselves. The area is being defended by the 252nd Battalions of the 241st. Territorial Defense Brigade, 5 kilometers away, roughly along this red line. There is a buffer zone here. The Ukrainian villages here, which are located between the line and the border, were evacuated some time ago, and now there are mainly minefields here. Barbed wire, shocking studies which immediately turns out to be a chessboard where they can use artillery effectively. If the Russians come to clarify this a bit on the camp map, just imagine. The Ukrainian units would be up here in the village, really well entrenched, and the Russians would still be on their side of the border. Then from here, they could easily observe and scout who is here the whole time and just shell the village. At the same time, Russian soldiers could also just position themselves here and shoot at the Ukrainian soldiers from the Russian side. And if they had responded with artillery or other weapons, then the Russians could have recorded that, and they could have basically complained to the Western financial and support providers that their weapons were used on Russian territory. For that reason, they thought, let's create a buffer zone of about 5 kilometers and move our units further away. So for Russia to invade Ukraine, they must first cross into Ukrainian territory, which spans a fairly manageable and wide area, which gives the Ukrainians the opportunity to attack the Russian soldiers here with artillery. And the ones who survive that can then be quickly hit in their own positions. In any case, that's what happened at 252. The battalion has just taken up position in Ryazny. That's here, since the Russians are now shelling the area within the 5-kilometer zone. This is a current recording from today. Russian propagandist Solovyov appeared visibly upset on live television after Kremlin-linked military bloggers began openly doubting his success stories about Kupiansk. All the questioning soon led to a meltdown for him. The trigger was reports about encircled Russian troops, supply problems, and operational failures around the city, and of course also the Russian claim that the city had long been completely captured, even though that wasn't true. The angry outburst reveals the official narrative's fragility. When even loyal Z channels can't ignore reality, propagandistic control grows more unstable. You have to imagine it something like this. There are 2 types of pro-Russian bloggers. There are the military bloggers, who are at the front, who know the real situation and report more or less unfiltered, as far as they are allowed to, of course. Those are my favorite sources on the Russian side, which I really like to use to confirm information, because these people are actually involved in the war, and they also get rightfully upset when something doesn't work. For example, jammers that are junk, broken vehicles, or things like the destroyed combos. These people are largely loyal to Russia and support the war, but not because of Russian propaganda. It's because they see for themselves how badly it's going and are afraid of the consequences if they lose. Not just for the country, but also in terms of, we've come this far and lost many comrades, suffering heavy losses. If we lost everything now, it would all be for nothing. That's why many are warning about both sides and reporting as realistically as possible. On the other hand, there are the Kremlin war bloggers who don't report from the front, but instead try to spread the Kremlin's narrative among the people as much as possible. For example, Simon Yan, or here, Solovyov. And sometimes these are two completely different worlds. For example, he claims the city was fully captured, even though I'm sure he knew better. But the war bloggers on the ground claim the opposite. And now just imagine how that feels for an ordinary citizen, or even for a blogger, being caught between both sources of information. They are now upset and don't understand why the Kremlin is spreading lies at the expense of the people who are fighting at the front and know what it's really like. When many small bloggers challenge a Kremlin blogger and he briefly breaks down live, insulting them as squealing pregnant pigs, maybe that's just the beginning. According to Andriushchenko, a large number of Russian soldiers were attacked and significantly damaged in a convoy on the way to Kostiantynivka. A video is circulating on social networks showing a Russian soldier recording the situation here right after the attack. Destroyed vehicles and fallen soldiers can be seen in the area of a road, specifically this road. Here is the T-0516, which the Russians have attacked repeatedly. I can't show the video because there's a fallen Russian soldier every few meters, and I can't edit all of it out. You can always find this and everything else uncensored on my Telegram channel if anything gets censored. The material fits. By the way, it's the usual pattern that Russian movements on open routes are intercepted by drones, artillery, or small arms fire, especially when columns move on such easily visible roads without sufficient reconnaissance and without dispersing, and keep moving there until they're destroyed. And that's something we've been seeing for a very long time. That's exactly why new images of Russian mounted cavalry units are appearing again, because there's a major shortage of vehicles. Meanwhile, Russian units are collecting more North Korean 60mm infantry mortars. These are simple, easily deployable systems for close combat support, mainly designed for short distances and rapid attacks. Their use in Russian service is further evidence of an acute shortage of ammunition and equipment, as well as Moscow's growing military dependence on a country like North Korea, even with what are essentially trivial weapon systems like a mortar. A Ukrainian MiG-29 pilot destroys a bridge near Pokrovsk in Donetsk Oblast with a precise airstrike. An air-to-surface missile hammer-guided glide bomb was used in the operation. Ukrainian sources say the bridge was a key supply route for Russian forces and sometimes served as a shelter and gathering point for Russian assault groups regrouping under its protection. With the bridge destroyed, Russian logistics in this area are again limited, and small assault units have much less freedom of movement as long as they are still moving on foot. I will now spend the rest of the evening editing and preparing an update for Venezuela, and I look forward to having you join me there as well. Speaking of Venezuela, many observers point out that Trump has successfully completed his 3-hour special operation in Venezuela, while Putin's own claim of a short campaign in Ukraine has failed daily. This comparison falls a bit short. Putin's special operation in Crimea in 2014 was very successful, and it even exceeded Russian expectations. Exactly this success did not slow down the Kremlin, but on the contrary, encouraged them to expand the model. Given the widely known disastrous events since 2022, which is why we're discussing this now, the key issue is not short-term success, but the potential for hubris. Trump might also be affected if operational successes are wrongly seen as lasting strategic superiority. The Venezuela case clearly shows United States intelligence agencies were highly effective, while Russian intelligence failed strategically in Ukraine. Washington apparently succeeded in neutralizing key parts of the Venezuelan security and power elite or bringing them over to its own side. Moscow tried something similar in Ukraine, but failed. In southern Ukraine at the war's start, large areas were surrendered with little resistance, showing some localized Russian influence successes. However, Russia ultimately failed to sustainably undermine Ukraine's political leadership or security architecture. One thing I understand is that this still shapes all of Russia's warfare to this day. And with that, I want to thank all subscribers, channel members, and the Algo crew. Special thanks to Lieutenant Colonel Renica, Robert Siller, Dietrich, Freddie, and Meyerhofer. Subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next report.